Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing another One Piece review. Specifically we're doing Impel Down. Just before we get into it, if you do hear a lot of noise around me, I am currently in the middle of a tropical storm. It's like cyclonic winds, all the trees are going crazy. There's so much like thunder and rain and lightning, it's going crazy. So I was originally going to delay this video, but it looks like I'm expecting these conditions all week. So I just thought I'd have to commit and just, film the video even with the terrible conditions. Now, especially because this arc was crazy. We got a lot of great stuff. I really enjoyed this arc, specifically all of the throwbacks to all of the old villains. Who'd we get? We got Mr. 3, we got Crocodile, we got Mr. 2, the Okama, and we also got Buggy the Clown, which, I've been saying it for ages. I love Luffy and Buggy's dynamic. I also said before that I loved Luffy and Mr. 2's dynamic as well. So it was really great to see Luffy and Mr. 2 and Luffy and Buggy back together again. Especially towards the beginning of this arc, I believe it was right near the beginning, we see Alvida driving around Buggy's ship. And, she's leading the crew, and she's just like, look, guys, this is my ship now. Buggy, he's in Impel Down. There's no rescuing him. He's gone. He's dead. Be my crew. Otherwise, I'll chuck you on a boat and get rid of her. But, in that moment when they first see, Buggy's pirate flag, you don't see anything else. You just see, Buggy's pirate flag through the Marine's, telescope thing. My heart filled with joy because I love Buggy. Specifically, I love Buggy and Luffy's dynamic and their relationship with each other. So I was really looking forward to this one, and I'm glad it played out the way it did. Although I will say that it was so sad what happened with Mr. 2, right? He sacrifices himself again for Luffy and his new crew to go and save Ace. And it was such a weird sensation for me when I was reading it to feel genuine sadness, and I felt genuine sorrow when you're there and you're wow, this guy's about to die. This guy is genuinely, this is it for him. And they don't show him dying, they don't show him being killed or poisoned or anything like that. So it's safe to presume that we will see him again in the future. But I did feel this genuine sadness and this genuine sorrow when Mr. 2 is looking at the head jailer guy, and the head jailer guy is do you have any last words? And he's there and he's in his Okanama fighting stance, and he just says I have no regrets. And I was oh, my heart, because it was just before that, I believe he said something Luffy, I'm trying to just repay you, and throwback to when they were leaving Alabasta, and he was trying to replay Luffy for the friendship and all of that. And towards the end of it, there's just this poem playing in the panels, and it's a poem about the flower of friendship and the petals falling, and hopefully they can meet again one day. And I'm just ugh. I kind of wish that they showed him being killed. I kind of wish that they gave us that closure to give us that this guy actually died, right? Because I feel as if my memory serves me well, we haven't really had anybody die yet. Even the bad guys don't really die. We've had the flashbacks, the girl that encouraged Zoro to become the world's best swordsman, she died, right? And Nami's mum dies, and everyone Robin knew died, right? So all these people did die, but nobody that we've really come to know and enjoy and love has died. So I kind of wish that they did show us Mr. 2, nothing graphic or anything like that, but just to get that closure of him dying, and to just kind of it would just change the way that us as the reader would experience One Piece. It would just be wow, these people are about to cross the red line, these people are about to move into the new world, they're really stepping up how dark and crazy this story is. But of course, in saying that, I am hoping that he's not dead, because I did like Mr. 2 from the beginning, especially when he sacrifices himself for the Straw Hat crew to let them, get away, and the friendship and the way that whole thing was foreshadowed, right at the very beginning when he steals all their faces and he's hey, we're friends. and then like right at the end they're like, oh, we're friends, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna sacrifice myself for my friends. I loved that whole thing, and I was like, oh, Mr. 2, why did you have to sacrifice yourself? I really liked that guy, and I'm sad that he, you know, even if he's still alive, he's now stuck in like that super duper mega torture prison, right? And just while we are talking about, you know, One Piece going in a darker direction or a more adult direction or whatever, you know, it is just a theory that I have that like once they cross into the new world, I predict things will get a lot heavier, especially because we're moving into a war, right? So I expect things will be getting a lot heavier. Just on that theme, and you know, I have noticed this in the past, like say, you know, 100 chapters or the past couple of arcs, that things have been getting heavier and things have been getting kind of darker as everyone is getting stronger. And just on that darker theme, let's talk about this prison for a moment. Like, this prison had like a lot of like pretty gruesome torture scenes in it. Like when they drop down into that first level and like all the trees are made out of like knives or spikes or something, and all the grass is also made out of spikes, and people get like chased through there, and you know, they just run, just constantly getting like stabbed and sliced up. Then they break into the next floor, and it's the like starvation room, and you see someone hanging from a cross, and like all these people just like, shells of themselves as they're all like dying of hunger or thirst. Then they go to the next floor, and it's the lake of blood one, and you just see all the people, and they're just like in this dark blood, and they're suffering, and the jailer or whatever pushes them into the fire, into the boiling lake of blood for them to be boiled alive. Like, that's so intense and fucked. Then they move on down into the next level, and they show like a guy that's like frozen solid from being frozen to death in like the icebox room, and you know, another guy, and he's got like frostbite and his fingers are breaking off. You know what I mean? So the point that I'm kind of trying to like touch on here is that this story does feel like it's getting darker. This story does feel like it's becoming like heavier and more adult. And it feels like that transition line, like the logical transition line, will be when they cross the red line, right? When they go through Fishman Island, come out the other side, you can just expect for it to be so much more heavier. And it feels like everything that we've been getting in, you know, say this arc, you know, and the past couple of arcs, it feels like it's just been kind of like ramping it up slowly, so it's not just like you're thrown into the boiling lake of blood. You know, you're not just like thrown into the fire with the deeper, darker story that they want to tell. This is, obviously, I don't know this for sure, like, for all I know, it could be like bubblegums and rainbows on the other side of the red line, but I really doubt it. I really feel like they're trying to like ramp us up slowly, and then once they get onto the other side of the red line, it's like, hey guys, like, all that was child's play, things are getting real crazy now. One of the things that I was kind of surprised that didn't get explored a little bit more, maybe for like, you know, just kind of 1 or 2 chapters in the beginning, was the relationship between Luffy and Hancock. I thought that was kind of odd because I did like their dynamic, and I do like Boa Hancock, so I kind of hope that we do get to see a little bit more of her. Like, you know, what I presume that's going to happen in the next arc is they're all going to rock up at God, what is it? Marineford or Marineford, I think is how you say it. They're all going to rock up at Marineford for this execution, and I imagine that Boa Hancock is also going to be there, and at some point she is going to turn on the government and help Luffy with his mission, right? So I did find it kind of odd that they didn't go into any more detail developing that relationship. You know, Oda just kind of showed that, you know, Luffy was oblivious to her love and she was blindly in love with him. And, you know, I do like their dynamic. I do like Luffy just being, like, so clueless and saying something, and she's just like, oh, that means he loves me. He really cares about me. I do like that. I do like that dynamic. I think it's funny. I think it's pretty cute, to tell you the truth, and it is something that I enjoyed reading, which is kind of why I wanted to read more of it. And on my last review video, someone did ask me, you know, what did you think about Hancock falling in love with Luffy? What did you think of that? And that's a really good question, right? Because the thing is, in storytelling, people hate insta-love, right? It's called insta-love when two people meet each other and they fall in love, and it's like, oh wow, I'm instantly in love with this person, right? Which is exactly what happened here. But for me, it wasn't quite insta-love, because one, it's not reciprocal, right? Luffy is so confused by her. Luffy is so oblivious to like the love and connection that she has to him. So I wouldn't call that insta-love. And the other thing is, it's incredibly understandable because she is so sought after, right? She's this like beautiful woman. She's the most beautiful woman in the world. Whenever people see her, they like fall instantly, madly in love with her. So for her to like, you know, like throw herself at Luffy like she did, and Luffy just to be like, you know, that's not food, where's the kitchen? To me, it makes a lot of sense for her to be like, wow, I'm super into this guy. Like, he's unlike any other man or woman that I've encountered. Like, every other man and woman I've encountered falls instantly and madly in love with me. And this guy is just so unaffected by my charms. So it makes sense to me that she would be like immediately and incredibly infatuated with Luffy because he's so different, because he's not under her power. And maybe to her, she would see him more as like an equal, you know, someone that she wouldn't just like mindlessly control and be hers to do whatever she willed. She would see him more of an equal to her. So I did actually, really, I ship them. You know what, I like incredibly doubt that Boa Hancock will be joining the Straw Hat crew, right? Especially because we just got Frankie and we just got Brooke, right? But I mean, like, if there was like, you know, once every 100 chapters, you know, something like Buggy and, you know, Alvida and all of that, like every now and again they just kind of like meet up and like just kind of, she's in love with him and he's oblivious or whatever. I do like that dynamic. I hope this isn't the last we're going to see of her, right, like in the next arc, because I presume she's going to be in the next arc and I presume she's going to help Luffy. I hope this isn't the last we see of her, and I hope that we see her more in the future and she becomes like a funny kind of Buggy, like what Buggy's been throughout the entire story so far. But also, before I move on, I should probably mention that you know, they do have a similar Haki or something. They both have the Conquerors, the King's Haki, or whatever it was called, the leaders, the, you know, the Chosen One Haki. So it could also have something to do with that, but I highly doubt it. I think it's more of just like a, you know, she's never experienced a man like Luffy before, and that's what it's all come from. I don't think it has much to do with the Hakis being like an attraction to each other, but I also don't know anything about the Hakis yet. I'm waiting for them to get some damn training on it so I can find out everything about it. But I'm saying that, like, you know, I understand that they do have a similar one, but I don't think that's where the attraction is coming from. Alright, moving on, I'm going to throw up some panels, and we will talk about the panels. Usually I've been doing this kind of right at the end of my videos, but I've decided I'm going to start doing them earlier in my videos, because why not? Hey, it'll be kind of fun to have, like, things popping up on the screen and we can talk about them. So this is the first panel I'll throw up. As you can see, this one happened kind of early in the story. This was when Alvida is telling the crew, like, look, you know what, Buggy, he was in Impel down, no one's going to rescue him, he's probably dead already, let's just move on with our life. And you can see down the bottom they're saying, there's no way Captain Buggy isn't the kind of man who would die here. That's right, until the day we find Captain John's treasure island, we'll follow Captain Buggy. Now, this is one of the things that I actually really liked about this story, right? So when they are running around through Impel Down, and they're running into the, you know, all the old villains, they do something really interesting. Well, Oda does something really interesting with his storytelling, and I say this all the time, right? I say all the time, Oda didn't have to do it, right? You know what? It's like, it should be my slogan. I'm going to change my entire friggin' channel name to Oda didn't have to do it. He just puts so much attention to detail, and he just goes above and beyond to create a story. And it's just, it's one of those things where it's like, it bothers me that people won't give One Piece the story a chance because of the, you know, format that it's written in. It's written in manga, and a lot of people won't give it a chance because of that, which is such a shame, because this guy, Oda, is so fantastic at what he does. And such a great showcase of that is moments like this, where, you know, it's like Oda didn't have to do it, but he did it, and it shows. So it's like, in this moment when they're talking about Captain John's treasure map or something, I believe it was, later on in the story when Luffy is running around with Captain Buggy, he brings up that Luffy's armband is like a treasure marker, or it's a treasure map or something towards Captain John's treasure. And as far as I'm aware, we haven't heard anything of Captain John's treasure. I feel as if Captain John would be a pretty easy name to remember, and I really don't remember anyone bringing up Captain John before. Right, and the reason this is so interesting, and the reason this is a showcase of fantastic writing, is that it shows that Buggy and his crew and the other villains, they're all living their lives, right? They're all fully grown people that are living out their individual lives, chasing their individual dreams, and Luffy comes in and out of their life. They are not there, they are not like, a stagnant piece of human, and whenever Luffy comes along, they're like, oh yeah, nothing's really changed, or like, yeah, I've got this new scar from Luffy. They're like, oh hey, you're here, I've been on my own crazy adventure, I'm off chasing Captain John's treasure. My life doesn't revolve around Luffy and his crew and what they're doing at any one time. We're living our own life as well, and we're growing and advancing and chasing our dreams and doing our own thing. And the other time that's shown is when we get Mr. 2 and he's like, I want to go down and I want to see the, Okama king or queen or however you want to refer to him. This person means a lot to me. I want to go down and save him. It's been a lifelong dream of mine, blah, blah, blah. And it just shows that these people are real living people. They're not just extras in Luffy's story. Like Luffy could be an extra in their story. If we were to get this story told from Buggy's perspective, or to get this story told from Mr. 2's perspective, it would be a full explained story with interesting plot points, interesting side characters, and Luffy would just rock in, be a side character, and leave, and the story would keep going, and it would still be interesting. And that's fantastic writing. This is the next panel, right? Now, this one I found really interesting. So, when I first saw the symbols for Impel Down, I kind of made the connection, and I kind of made the thought, like, hey, that kind of looks like the symbol for the bad guys for World War II, right? Like, I'm not saying it is, but it, like, kind of looks like it. And, when you see, like, the, like, officers' coats and, like, the armband and, the hat and, like, how fancy they dress, it does very much remind me of the bad guys from World War II. And I wasn't really going to bring this up because it's like, whatever. I don't know if Oda's doing that on purpose or not. I don't know if I'm looking too far into it. I'm not a history student. I'm not a history buff. I just kind of know them from, Indiana Jones movies. So if you do agree with me, or if you do disagree with me, feel free to let me know. I would love to know if I'm just, mistaken on this, or if it's something that was done intentionally. But to me, I feel like it might have been done intentionally. And I feel like that because Oda has been building up that this is a corrupt government power. Like, this is a government, they are corrupt, they're doing bad things to the world. And that's kind of like what the bad guys in World War II were doing. Like, they were a corrupt political party that were doing bad things to the world, right? So to me, it's not that far of a stretch to find the connection between them. But why I think it's important that I pointed that out was because I feel as if it makes Luffy's actions more justifiable. It makes them more, easier to get behind Luffy with what he's doing, and it makes it showier that, like, hey, this government is a bad government, these people are bad people. Like, you recognize this dress, these symbols look very familiar to you. Subconsciously, these are bad people, and Luffy is the rebellious spirit that's fighting against this corrupt government. And it feels kind of like those early Medal of Honor games. I don't know if you guys played those early Medal of Honor games on, like, PlayStation 2 or whatever. But, like, there was no justification needed to those games, right? Like, you kind of just went from point A to point B, and you were just killing bad guys from, like, start to finish. And there was no justification to it. There was no story being told, because it was like, these are the bad guys. These are the bad guys because they're yelling at you in German and because of the symbolism that they're displaying. But then you take those same, like, Medal of Honor, Call of Duty games, and you bring them closer into our current climate, and suddenly they're a lot more story heavy, because you have to justify why these people are being attacked, why these people are attacking you, why you're attacking them back. And you get things like, no Russian, from, what is it, Modern Warfare 1 or Modern Warfare 2. And it's like, boom, that's the justification to why these things are happening. Whereas in those early games, they didn't need that justification. You already knew, ingrained, that these people were the bad guys. I don't know, just a little food for thought I thought I'd bring up. Alright, now we got this panel. So this panel is really interesting for me, right? Because so far, I don't think that they've, like I just said in the last thing, all about like justifying war and all of that, I feel as if they haven't really explained what the purpose of this war is yet. Like why the government... So we know that the government wants Whitebeard to die, right? We know that the government is using Ace as bait to get Whitebeard and bring him into a trap with all of their like strongest people there. But I don't really know why, and I feel like this panel is meant to be here to explain that to us, right? So we get right at the top, the Fishman is explaining like how crappy their lives were, you know, after Gold Roger started the new age of piracy. All of a sudden the Fishman Island started getting flooded with new pirates, and they were abducting fishermen. Many fishermen and mermaids were abducted and sold. But just when we were about to give up into despair, Whitebeard appeared. "This island is under my protection," Whitebeard says. "I'll never forget that day." With those words, nobody dared to lay a hand on Fishman Island. What power. He has several islands under his protection of his name. It's not right to take him down just because he's a pirate boss. If by some chance we were to die, what would happen to these seas? The government is very well able to manage that. Imagine that. So is that what this war is specifically about? Is it about the government wants whatever Whitebeard is protecting? Because we do know that Whitebeard and Gold Roger were pirates at the same time, right? They were like equals, I believe. So it stands to reason that everything that we've been learning about Gold Roger, how like he had the terminal illness, he kind of like disbanded his crew slowly so they'd have a head start to get away from the government, because he knew that they would be coming after the crew after he turned himself in. We know that, you know, Gold Roger premeditated turning himself in and all of that. He could have also made a friendship with Whitebeard, or made some kind of like, you know, tenuous connection with him, just been like, hey, Whitebeard, like there's this one specific island and it's got, you know, all of the poneglyphs. There's this one specific island and it has the One Piece on it. Could you please protect it for me? Here's literally all my money. I don't need any of it. I'm literally about to go and die. So like take everything I have, and all I ask of you is to protect this one island for me. Like, to me, that makes a lot of sense. Like, we've been learning a lot about, you know, Gold Roger recently, and how much of, like, a thinker he's been, and how much he's been, like, premeditating things, and how, you know, he learned about the poneglyphs and all of that. So it does make sense to me that as part of his premeditation for his death, he could have easily made amends with an old enemy that becomes a friend, or, you know, explained to Whitebeard why it's so important to protect these islands, whatever. So it makes me wonder if that's part of it. Does the government want Whitebeard to be killed, so that way whatever country or island or whatever specifically that he's protecting will no longer be protected, so the government can get to it and get to whatever Gold Roger was trying to hide? Or maybe he's like buried One Piece somewhere specific, and, you know, by the time Luffy and them get there, you know, the government's going to be excavating it for a year. But they're not going to be able to find it, because what they really need is Robin and her big brain to find it for them, which is what Luffy will have. Anyway, that's one part of it. The other part is, like, you know, we did learn in the last arc, or the one before that, that, you know, the fishermen and the mermaids did sell for so much money, and it was something that all of the, like, higher-ups and the kids of the kings, the descendants and all that, something that they did really want. So is that something that the government is doing? They're just like, hey, you know, we just need Whitebeard to stop protecting these islands so we can come down and steal all the fishermen and all of the mermaids. I don't know. To me, I think it's more of like the first thing. I think they're trying to get Whitebeard to stop protecting these islands because Gold Roger asked Whitebeard to protect the islands. I don't know. That's my theory. But I feel like this war we haven't got its justification yet. And I feel as if there's going to be some kind of really interesting payoff in regards to that. And just on the possible motives of, the government starting the war and why they would want to do it, I present you with this panel as well. Right, everyone's going off about, kill Whitebeard, we hate Whitebeard, let's kill Whitebeard. And they're like, no, shut up, don't talk about Whitebeard. And Crocodile says this, Jinbei, Fire Fist, remember this well. There's no shortage of silver medalists shedding tears, just because they couldn't overcome Whitebeard and Roger. Goo-ha-ha-ha-ha-ha. Now, this to me is really interesting as well, because it's like, is Whitebeard being alive what's keeping everything kind of intact and stopping everything from descending in chaos? Because Whitebeard represents a goal, right? People are ignoring each other and kind of traveling towards that goal, and it's keeping things under wraps, and it's keeping things, out of the hands of chaos, because people see a clear direction they're going into, and they see a clear goal that they're going towards. So if Whitebeard was to be killed, as Crocodile said, there's no shortage of silver medalists that want him dead. So is he basically saying there's no shortage of people that are second best to Whitebeard, that if Whitebeard dies, everyone's going to be fighting to try and take that position of, King of the Pirates, or, I don't think Whitebeard had King of the Pirates, I think he had some other title, King of the Seas or something, because King of the Pirates is reserved for people that find One Piece, I believe. But anyway, is that the point? The point is that there's all these people that are currently heading towards one specific goal, so it kind of keeps everything under control, but then once that goal is gone, everybody is then out to prove themselves, and people aren't just working towards a specific goal, they're just trying to become the most powerful, the most chaotic, the most strong person that they can with the biggest reputation, so everything will descend into chaos. Pirates will be killing pirates, pirates will be killing regular people, everyone will be vying to build up the esteem to become the next King of the Sea until someone finds One Piece. And is that the point of the war? That the government wants the pirates to go crazy and go chaotic so that they will all kill each other and end the time of piracy? Or is it something more sinister, like they want the pirates to become chaotic and cause all of this damage so that the government will be justified in releasing those super weapons like Pluton or the other one? I think Mars was the other one we heard of, the God of War or something. I don't know. But is that the other thing, that they want the pirates to go crazy, they want the pirates to go chaotic, and then they will be justified to protect the citizens by unleashing these super weapons that are illegal and atrocities, but they will be justified to protect the people from a chaos that they originally created, right? That makes a lot of sense. I kind of think that might be my new prevailing theory, and I'm going to have to write that down before I forget that, right? Okay, new prevailing theory. Cool, got it. All right, this one I thought was really interesting, and I'm glad I saved it. I would have felt so dumb if I didn't save this one, right? So this is when they get to I think it's level 2, it's starvation level, and you see the imagery here is really, really grim, right? But I made sure to specifically study it, just because I was there's something going on here, right? Just the way that, I don't know, I just felt like there was something going on here. And then I noticed, up the top, obviously I'm going to add this picture after, during editing, so I don't know specifically where it is, but I'm going to say it's right here. There is what appears to be a poneglyph on the side of the wall there, right? I'm not crazy. There's no, writing anywhere else on the walls or anything else, so it's not I don't know, just instruction manuals or hey, give up hope or something, because that doesn't exist anywhere else. It's just in this one specific scene, there's something that looks incredibly like a poneglyph on the wall there. And I'm just I was kind of expecting something to happen with that, or I don't know what, but it's just that's definitely a poneglyph that I'm looking at right now. And it was hidden in plain sight, because as you're looking, you're seeing these people reacting to the torturous scene and the dead body hanging off the cross there. So I don't know, I just wanted to point out that there was a poneglyph there, and it just was not mentioned at all at any point in the story. All right, next we'll talk about this one, right? So Luffy specifically uses his Haki at this point. So this is after Luffy has been poisoned and Bon Clay is taking him to where he hopes the Okama King, the like miracle worker, is going to be. And while Bon Clay is being attacked by the wolves, Luffy gets up and he like uses his Haki and he like blows the wolves away. Now the reason that I like saved this scene is, to me, it was kind of odd that we didn't see Luffy use his Haki at any other point. I believe he didn't use his Haki at any other point in this arc, which I thought was kind of odd, especially while he was versing the man that could turn into poison, right? Like, it kind of seemed like the logical sequence for me that Luffy was going to, I don't really understand how Haki works yet, but from what I can gather, he doesn't have to touch people to use it. So I kind of thought when Luffy first punched the guy and he got all the poison over his arms, I kind of thought the next logical step from there was that Luffy would start understanding his Haki more and learning it to fight the guy that he can't touch. So I did save this scene because I thought it was weird that Luffy didn't use his Haki at any other point. Alright, next I want to talk about this, right? Now this isn't actually part of the story. This is just kind of I believe it's just a picture. I don't even think it's where Zoro is currently, how we've been kind of seeing that Sanji is currently on the island that the Okama King is from, right? Because, you get to see him and he's running around and there's the people. So Sanji's currently there and, we know where Robin is. She just broke out of the prison and whatever. I believe that this is just a picture that they painted, right? And the reason I brought this up was how disturbing is this photo, right? Because the longer you look at it, the more you understand it. So Zoro is on top of the cliff with this big chicken thing, and he's holding the wolf over the cliff to drop it and kill it, right? And on his shirt he says, "I like," and there's an egg with a little crack marks in it. And you see the chicken, and the chicken is kind of covering its eggs. So when you first see this, it looks like, okay, Zoro just saved, the chicken and the eggs. What a top bloke. What a classy guy. He saved them from the stripy dog that was coming in to eat it. But then you look at Zoro, and he's doing this. He's asking for an egg from the chicken for saving her life and the egg's life. And he's like, okay, in repayment, I want one of your eggs. Right. Now, the reason this is so crazy is because this isn't on a farm. This is a wild chicken, so those eggs are fertilized. Those eggs are real baby chickens. It's not like the eggs you get in your fridge or whatever. These have real living babies growing inside of them. So I think that that's kind of crazy that Zoro is just there and he's I just saved your life. Now give me one of your babies. And you just see the chicken is protecting it and the little sweat mark coming down, and it's just obviously uncomfortable. And I'm just wow, what a crazy picture that is. All right, now this one is a really interesting one, right? So you see he says 10 years of your life you would have lived. I'll be using them for you, Straw Hat Boy. Right, so this is Luffy got super poisoned and he's chained to the thing, and this person's about to put the hormones in him to make Luffy's body possibly fight the poison, but in return it's going to cost him 10 years of life. Now the reason that I saved this panel specifically, and it's something that I've been bringing up in my last couple of arcs, this is going to be a big one. Okay, so in this one I had a few kind of big thoughts about Luffy Gear 2, Luffy's kind of roll towards the end of the story and all of that. So I have said before that my main prevailing theory is that Luffy will sacrifice himself just like Gold Roger did. What for? I don't know. But I know that Luffy is constantly compared to Gold Roger, and I have a feeling that the story will end with Luffy turning himself into the government for execution because he will probably have some kind of terminal disease, right? Now I've brought that up more than once, and people have retorted to that statement by saying, Chopper, his whole story, his whole big arc and dream is that he will learn to cure any disease. And so apparently other people have thought the way that I did, that Luffy would probably come down with some kind of terminal illness, just like Gold Roger did, turn himself in, blah, blah, blah. But where other people's theories differ from mine is that Luffy won't turn himself in because Chopper will cure Luffy, because that's part of his whole thing, that Luffy, or that Chopper can cure any disease, right? But once I saw this panel, I realized, like, oh, you know what, like, people could be very right that Luffy could get a terminal disease just like Gold Roger had, even the same one, probably, and that Chopper would be able to cure it. But then I saw this one, and they mentioned that Luffy would lose 10 years. And then the kind of cogs just started turning, and I kind of thought more about Gear 2. But not only about Gear 2, but about Luffy and how he specifically needs to eat so much. And originally, I chalked this up to kind of like a joke, right? So, like, Luffy's ability to stretch, right, is Luffy's ability to grow, right? And growing boys need to eat a lot of food, right? We hear it, mothers say it all the time, the world says it all the time. Growing boys need to eat a lot of food. So I always thought it was kind of a pun that, like, Luffy can grow and he eats a lot of food. But then Gear 2 started happening, right? And after Gear 2, Luffy feels exhausted, and he generally needs to eat a lot of food, which is something that happened here as well. After Luffy fights off the thing, he has to eat a lot of food. And I realized that Luffy manipulating his body and making it, like, go fast and, like, having to do all this crazy stuff is probably really screwing with, like, his internal systems and his metabolism, specifically, which is kind of like what keeps you alive and what slows down as you get older. And I realized that maybe Luffy doesn't get a terminal disease like Gold Roger did. Maybe Luffy just runs out of years, right? Like, he's just lost 10 years here, and maybe, like, doubling his, firing up his metabolism or whatever is making him lose even more years. And, like, towards the end of the story, it's not that Luffy comes down with some kind of crazy sickness. He's just given up so many of his years to things like curing this poison, or Gear 2, or, you know, other things that I don't know that will be coming in the future. So I'm kind of thinking that that is what's going to happen. You know, it's not going to be an incurable disease, because, as we know, Chopper wants to cure all diseases. It's just going to be a simple thing of Luffy's metabolism ran for too long and he gave up too many of his years, so his body just is going to shut down and he's going to die. I don't know. What do you guys think of that one? Because I'm pretty on board with that theory, to tell you the truth, because a lot of people have been talking about, like, numbers and the importance of numbers and how important numbers are to One Piece, which, I mean, if anyone knows what the number 8 symbolizes, I wonder if Ace has something to do with the number 8 because of the S plus the line. But I'll talk about Ace's tattoo a little later on. Actually, screw it. Let's talk about Ace's tattoo now. Okay, so I'm not going to lie. I love One Piece, right? I think about it. I think about it a lot. And, you know, one of the big things that has plagued my mind is Ace's tattoo and why the letter S is crossed out. Now, we did learn a lot about, you know, kind of Ace and his lineage in this one. We learnt that, you know, he doesn't consider the dragon his father because he was never there. He considers Whitebeard his father because Whitebeard was there, right? And so he took on Whitebeard's name, which I'm guessing is Portgas. Now, originally, I was in the shower and I was thinking about it, and I was like, why is the S crossed out? And I was kind of thinking about it. I was like, Portgas D Ace. And I was like, what happens if I remove the S from Portgas? And I was like, Portgad Ace, Portgadace. And I was like, maybe it's like a Portuguese word or something. I don't know. But then I started just thinking about, like, the names in general. And one of the things I thought about was, like, Ace. And, like, the weirdness of getting your first name tattooed on you, right? Now, one of the big things about, like, lineage and family and all that is, like, you know, if you're from the UK or whatever and you want to represent your family, you know, a lot of people get the coat of arms, their family's coat of arms. If you, there's, like, Google search, you'd look up, you know, Billy Bob coat of arms, and it'll show you, like, what your family's crest would have been if you were part of that time period, right? So a lot of people get, like, a family coat of arms tattooed on them. And if you're not from that culture, a lot of people get their last name tattooed on them for the family lineage, right? Like, when I was in the army, it was very common for a lot of soldiers to get their last name tattooed across their forearm here. So to me, it wasn't so weird that Ace would get his name tattooed on him until I realized that it was his first name that was tattooed on him, which was like, that has nothing to do with your family lineage. It's just your name, right? Like, when people want to do family lineage and represent their family, they get like something symbolic of the family, but his tattoo is just his name. And that's when I realized it's probably not his name. It's probably a coincidence, right? And this is probably going to sound so dumb if, like, you know, in the next arc or whatever, they're about to tell us exactly what his tattoo means. That's kind of why I wanted to, like, bring this up now. So, like, just in case I do find out specifically, because I have a feeling the next arc is going to be flashback heavy of Luffy and Ace. And I'll touch on that in a second. But I'm kind of thinking maybe it's like a list. I think it's like, God, I can't think of the word. It's not acronym. What's the, where each letter represents a different word? Maybe that is acronym. I don't know. Anyway, maybe it's like a list of people that he wants to take out, you know, and he's already taken out the guy whose name begins with the letter S. Or maybe it's like a treasure map, and, you know, he has to go to each point to get the key to unlock the treasure at the end, and he's already gone to the S place. And it's just like a mere coincidence that it happens to spell out his name. I don't know, just a theory I had. Anyway, the reason that I think that the next chapter will be very Luffy and Ace flashback heavy is because this one ends with Ace just about to walk out to the execution platform, right? We see the door and like the sun comes in and it's just about to open. I have a feeling this next chapter is going to be a lot of like Ace kind of sitting there on the execution platform and Luffy sitting on the boat as they're traveling to get to Marineford, and they're both just kind of like reminiscing about their childhood together and what brought them to where they are now. This one I thought was really important to bring up. I'll read you everything that it says in just 1 second. But specifically, you know, I've been talking a lot about how much I like the dynamic between like the pirates being the good guys, the government being the bad guys, blah, 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 and all of that stuff. I spoke a lot about how much I do like that dynamic. So in this panel, we see the guy really standing up for the people, right? Like he's about to sacrifice himself for the greater good of the community. And I just thought that I would highlight this because we don't really see this a lot, especially in like the higher positions of power, like what this guy is holding, that he is just selflessly trying to serve the community. And I thought I'd highlight that, you know, in a world where like there's so much corruption, I thought I would show the like one guy that is like about to sacrifice himself for the greater good. And he says, "You bastards who cause nothing but trouble outside, pirates and rebels, you want to save your brother? The scum of society has no right to say such pretty things. If you get out, people would be so horrified that they wouldn't be able to sleep at night for fear of losing their loved ones. This is the fortress of hell, built to shut away the worst criminals and protect the peace for the masses. If it were broken, the world would fall into the depths of fear. You won't take one step out." Right? Like when you read that, it's like this guy is specifically about to sacrifice himself to try and stop the, you know, Straw Hats because he's trying to protect the people. He's trying to stop people from being afraid. You know, he knows that this jail is a beacon of justice, and he knows that, like, people need to believe in this jail to hold the worst of the worst. And I just thought I'd highlight that because we don't really see that very often. And I thought that that was a really interesting, I thought that was a really cool point, actually. Now, this one I thought was really interesting too, right? Not specifically anything anyone is saying in this scene, but if you look at this one picture of Blackbeard, doesn't he look so much like Usopp? Right? The eyes, the nose, the mouth. Like if you kind of just like covered up the like scarf, if you covered up from the top of his eyebrow and kind of like where he's like speaking, it would look the spitting image of Usopp. And I was just like, that's kind of interesting because we already know who Usopp's father is, right? Because I believe, off the top of my head, he's part of Shanks' crew. I believe Usopp is still part of Shanks' crew. So it was interesting to me because if I didn't already know that, I would be like, this guy is Usopp's father for sure. So I'm kind of like, Usopp's brother? Usopp's uncle? Usopp's, you know, I don't know. Like, is this guy related? Like, he looks like he's related. I'm just saying. This one I'll touch on quickly because I already, spoke about it heaps before. But basically, the guy with the scissor hands, he is recovering, and the Okama says, if your lifespan is cut, you can't regain those years. Right, and it just goes into what I was saying about how I think that Luffy is going to find out that his years are coming to an end, and Chopper isn't going to be able to fix it. Or maybe he can, I don't know. But, this person specifically highlighted after saying Luffy's 10 years was cut from his life, that if your lifespan is cut, you can't regain those years. Next one we get here, and we get Jinbei has a flashback to Arlong Park, and he thinks to himself, I owe Luffy and your crew, for a couple of things that you've done for me, and he has a flashback to Arlong Park. And it makes me wonder, is this the guy that originally set free all of the slaves in the Shabondi a cappella arc? Is that this guy? But then thinking back, I believe as part of that story, the captain died, and that's what made the crew splinter in the first place. So I'm not 100% sure. Alright, just a few more points that I wanted to bring up. I wanted to bring up the fact that I really like that Garp is really proud of his grandkids, right? Like, even though, Ace and Luffy are both pirates, they're both, like, infamous pirates now, I really like the fact that, when they find out, Garp's sitting in Marine headquarters or whatever, and everyone's panicking, and they're like, oh, Straw Hat Luffy's broken in, and he's causing all this drama, and Garp's just there, and he's like, yep, that's my grandkids for you. And, the other guy's like, if you weren't the hero of the Marines, I'd have you bloody thrown in jail or something. And I really like that about Garp. I like the fact that he's like, I don't agree with the choices that they've made, but I'm glad they're doing well. I don't agree with what they're doing, but I'm happy that they're executing it. I'm happy that they're doing good at what it is that they're doing. And he just kind of like has these proud grandpa moments like, yep, that's my grandkids for you. They might be smashing up the place, but at least they're damn good at it. Another thing that I wanted to bring up is when Luffy first starts fighting the poison guy, and the poison guy uses his like big Hydra ability, and the three heads come out. I thought it was really interesting that in that moment, Luffy, while he's kind of like jumping away from it, he forces one of the Hydra heads into the fire, and it like burns off the head. And then for the rest of that fight, that Hydra only has two heads, and you can kind of see the stump of the third head. I thought that was really clever because, when Hercules, like if you don't know Greek mythology, Hercules originally has to fight the Hydra, right? Which is, a serpent-y kind of monster. And when he cuts off one of the heads, two heads grow out of the stump of the neck. And eventually what he has to do is he has to cut the head off and then burn the stump so the heads don't regrow. And I thought it was just like a little clever piece of storytelling that, this guy would use the Hydra ability and Luffy would kill it using fire, and then like the head didn't regrow back. I don't know. I can't help but feel that was definitely done on purpose. And I'm here for it. I just thought it was very clever, and I just wanted to mention it. I will say that one of the predictions that I did get right, and I do so infrequently get my predictions right, so it is nice whenever I get a prediction right. I will say that one of them was the armband that Luffy was wearing, right? I believe it was at the end of the Thriller Bark arc when they load all the treasure onto the ship, or the Ghost Lady loaded all the treasure onto the ship before she was sent away. And Luffy is there, and he picks up an armband, and he puts on the armband, or he says to Nami, he's like, hey, can I have this? And Nami's like, there's no jewels in it, so yeah, I guess you can have it. That's no drama. And Luffy puts it on, and I said that I bet that there's going to be something to do with that armband, and it turns out that it was part of a treasure map. So I did feel really clever when we did find out that was actually part of a treasure map. Alright, my camera is about to die, so I will wrap this up. I did really enjoy this one. I thought it was really great. It was really great to see all of the old villains again. you know, and having them forced to all work together, and the friendship, and you know, like kind of the trust slash mistrust that they all got together, and that they all decided to go and help Ace, or you know, they've all got their own little motivations towards going that way. I really enjoyed it. I'm really excited to see what happens next. You know, one of the really interesting things about like being a One Piece YouTuber, and this is really difficult, is when I finish the arc that I'm reading, I can't just go straight into the next one. I have to stop and like film this video, which is like such a difficult thing to do because you're in such a role, you're like in bed or on the lounge or whatever, and you're doing your thing, and then you just have to like stop to like film this video. It is such a hard thing to do. It is such a hard thing to just stop, and you're just like, I could just read the first chapter. The first chapter, you know, it won't spoil anything. It'll be fine. I'll just read the first chapter. So as soon as I'm done with this, I am jumping straight into the next. I believe the next one's like 30 chapters long or something. So by the time you see this video, I should have probably completed the next arc already. So feel free to, you know what, actually don't comment anything down below just in case anyone hasn't read that far yet, just in case anyone's doing arc by arc reviews. Anyway, camera's about to die. Thank you very much for watching this far. Love your work. You're doing great. Peace out. Live long. Bloody like the video. Leave a comment. Friggin' what's the other thing? Subscribe. And as always, thank you very much.